The King's Avatar, Chapter 585, Audio Source, WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 585, Starting Place. Dazzling Spring attacked with an extremely quick pace. In order to dodge these types of attacks, unrivaled Super Hottie had to make lots of movements. This caused Chen Guo, who was beside Yishu, to stare at his screen, but be unsure of what was going on. Despite this, she was still immensely excited. This was because she was the only person who could actually confirm the two's identity. Yishu, that naturally goes without saying. Zhang Jiale. His flashy Spitfire's 100 Blossoms style was too noticeable. Even more so, Yishu quietly spoke to Dazzling Spring so that no one else besides Dazzling Spring could hear him. However, Chen Guo was next to Yishu, so she could hear him speak. Chen Guo didn't need further confirmation. She had already made an accurate guess on this person's identity. Chen Guo was extremely excited. She was too busy to even look down on Yishu for telling the clerics to support him, so he could just tank the hits to fight. Zhang Jiale was a god. In terms of age, he had been a pro for 6 years. Right now, the Glory Pro Alliance was on its 8th competitive season, so he would be considered quite old. Within these 6 years, he participated in 3 finals, which was quite an accomplishment. Amongst all the gods in the pro scene, only Yi Chu and Wang Jiexi had similar achievements. Yi Chu had participated in 4 finals and became the champion 3 times. Wang Jiexi had participated in 3 finals and became the champion 2 times. Zhang Jiale had participated in 3 finals, but won the championship 0 times. This tragic comparison was honestly very depressing. Especially for those 3 finals, Zhang Jiale's opponents just happened to be Yi Chu and Wang Jiexi. When the 3 were compared together, it only made Zhang Jiale look even more tragic. Last season, or the Pro Alliance's 7th season, Team 100 Blossoms led by Zhang Jiale lost to Team Tiny Herb led by Wang Jiexi. Zhang Jiale's heart completely died. After the long holidays, he suddenly announced his retirement, completely catching Team 100 Blossoms off guard. Because Team 100 Blossoms wasn't able to prepare well enough during the summer, their performance this season fell sharply. It was only because of Team Excellent Era's downfall that Team 100 Blossoms was able to escape from criticism. Then again, Team 100 Blossoms' decline wasn't unreasonable like Team Excellent Era's. The sudden retirement of their ace player and captain resulted in the team not having anyone to take his position. Their decline wasn't a surprise with such misfortune falling upon them. However, a team that had participated in 3 finals couldn't be ordinary. Team 100 Blossoms' second-year rookie Tang Hao had risen abruptly this season. But their best character and the responsibilities involved were pushed onto Zhou Yuan, which was way beyond his ability. On the other hand, Tang Hao was an outstanding player, but the brawler character in his hand wasn't good enough to be considered a trump card. In the end, Team 100 Blossoms' performance was shaky. At this point in time, it would be natural for a person to think, if Zhang Jiale and his dazzling 100 Blossoms were still playing, along with the aid of the rising Tang Hao, Team 100 Blossoms would undoubtedly be a power to be reckoned with this season. Harsh critics would say Zhang Jiale was worthy of being called the #1 unlucky god. He couldn't take it anymore and retired after suffering through so many years, but then an outstanding helper immediately popped up in the team. Originally, he could have had another chance to win the championships, but the chance was missed just like that. But the majority of the people were lenient and felt sorry for Zhang Jiale. 100 Dazzling Blossoms' performance during last season's final was still as splendid as in the past. Zhang Jiale hadn't aged to the point where he needed to retire yet. It was just that he was unable to get any return from all of his struggling for so many years. Although he wasn't old, his heart had been grinded by time. His heart had given up. His sudden announcement of his retirement felt a little bit irresponsible and impulsive. Topics related to Zhang Jiale continued for the whole competition season. Even if Team 100 Blossoms had the upcoming Tang Hao, it couldn't stop the fans' reminiscence of Zhang Jiale. Some people suggested that in the All-Star Weekend's Rookie Challenge, Tang Hao's prideful junior succeeds the senior might have been because Team 100 Blossoms constantly talked about their retired team leader, which irritated him and caused him to want to rise like the devil. If one thought about this more carefully, the explanation would feel a bit far-fetched, but it was truly hard to say why Tang Hao issued the challenge. A god had just risen in the team, but the only thing people talked about was the previous leader. What could he be feeling in his heart? Tao Hao was only a god because of his skills. In terms of age, he was only a second-year rookie. He was turning 18 this year, an age where it's easy to be proud. How could anyone expect such a youth to be mature and reserved? Everything that had happened to Team 100 Blossoms this season could be attributed to Zhang Jiale's retirement. His leave was straightforward, but was he truly willing in his heart? If there really was another chance, would he return again? With the rise of Tang Hao this season, many Team 100 Blossom fans wanted Zhang Jiale to come back. But now, in the online game, Zhang Jiale's Spitfire had appeared. Combined with the encounter with Wei Chen from before, Chen Guo immediately became excited. Chen Guo was obviously a bit uneasy about their future new team. But another powerful god had come. How could Chen Guo stop herself from being excited? She hoped to see a repeat performance of Wei Chen's encounter. Did you become a spy and tyrannical ambition for this to happen? Chen Guo was so enthusiastic that her voice was shaking. For what to happen? Quote. But Yi Zhu was puzzled. Him. Zhang Jiale. Chen Guo pointed towards Dazzling Spring on Yi Zhu's screen. Chen Guo felt dizzy seeing a fight between two gods from a first-person point of view. I became a spy and tyrannical ambition to find Zhang Jiale. Could you please analyze how that makes any logical sense? Yi Zhu spoke helplessly. It's not. Chen Guo asked with uncertainty. Of course not. This is a pure coincidence. If I knew he were here, wouldn't I be seeking death by coming in my current condition? Yi Zhu spoke. What about your condition? With only my current equipment, no guild, and lacking 160 stat points. Yi Zhu spoke. Do you mean to say that you can't beat him? I just died a moment ago. Did you not see that? Yi Zhu asked, puzzled. I thought that was one of your despicable tactics. Chen Guo was dumbstruck. What type of tactic is that? When I get revived, my experience is still deducted. I was leveled, so a loss in experience means a reduction in stats. Yi Zhu said. So you're saying, it's a tragedy? Chen Guo asked. Didn't you see me calling for the clerics to come help me? Yi Zhu said. What exactly have you been doing this entire time? Chen Guo was at a loss for words. She really didn't think that the reason for Unrivaled Super Hottie's death and Yi Zhu's call for help was actually so simple and plain: he couldn't beat his opponent. She had been thinking about what sort of despicable scheme Yi Zhu was hiding. The truth rendered her speechless. He died because he couldn't beat his opponent. WuxaWorldAudio.com. He called for help because he couldn't beat his opponent. FCK, those actions were so logical. But Chen Guo didn't even spend a second to think about the possibility of this happening to Yi Zhu and regarded it as illogical. Chen Guo was still in a daze when Yi Zhu shouted again. Is anyone going to come help me? Now Chen Guo finally understood. This was no scheme, nor was it a trap. It was because he really couldn't beat the opponent that he had to ask for help. Even though Yishu managed to take advantage of the opening, while Zhang Jiale was in a daze, and attacked a few times, but just like what Yishu had told Chen Guo, his characters was too weak. Even though the equipment was provided by Jiang Yu, it was only bit better than his previous outdated equipment. It was nowhere near Dazzling Spring's equipment. Nowhere near didn't just mean the stats. For Unrivaled Super Hottie, it was a set of equipment casually provided by Jiang Yu. But for Dazzling Spring, it was obviously matched and designed meticulously by Zhang Jiale according to his own habits and style. It could be likened to a scuffle between two people. One fellow would be improvising with a randomly picked up brick, while the other fellow would be using a weapon he was familiar with. Secondly, there was the 160 stat point gap. Unrivaled Super Hottie didn't have it because he didn't have a guild. On the other hand, Dazzling Spring was with Blossom Valley. These two disadvantages were already enough to be a deciding factor. Yishu's current opponent wasn't any random player from the Heavenly Domain, in which case he could suppress through skill alone. This was a god who was on the same level as Yishu. His achievements were only a bit less than Yishu's. Let alone normal players, even Wei Chen wouldn't be able to compete with Zhang Jiale right now. Yishu was able to take advantage of the small opening, but he could gain a slight advantage for a bit. Without any alarm, Zhang Jiale relied on his two advantages to easily reverse the situation. Thus, Yishu had to call for help. However, the players from Blossom Valley wouldn't give him the opportunity. After identifying Zhang Jiale, protecting this duel from outside interference was even more important than the boss. Blow him to bits. After hearing Yishu calling out for help again, the players from Blossom Valley became very excited and gave another wave of cheers. Zhang Jiale also attacked amidst the cheers as if he had returned onto the stage. "Hey, why are you being so serious?" Yishu spoke, while controlling Unrivaled Super Hottie and looking for an opportunity. "You don't seem very relaxed either." Zhang Jiale finally spoke. "That's a must. Intend to form a new team and make my way back to the pro scene. Of course I have to be serious. I'm doing business here. If you want to bully noobs to feel superior, couldn't you go somewhere else? Hurry and pretend you DCD. Yishu said. Didn't you just say that bullying noobs doesn't feel good? I find it quite nice bullying you. Zhang Jiale said. I'm conducting serious business here. I don't have time to fool around with you. Yishu got angry. You're still not going to give up? Zhang Jiale asked. Why do I have to give up? Yishu asked in reply. Haven't you already gotten what you want? Why do you still want to keep going? Zhang Jiale asked. I've never heard of anyone getting tired of winning championships. Yishu said. You're still thinking of winning a championship? Zhang Jiale laughed. Winning a championship is very addicting. I really cherish my memories of it. Yishu said. FCK. Zhang Jiale turned depressed. Yishu clearly knew of his circumstances, yet this fellow was still discussing the feeling of winning a championship. He was sprinkling salt onto his wound. I don't feel like I need to retire yet. As long as there's a chance, I will never back out, even if it's just for one more day. Yishu spoke. Big bro, you're also in retirement right now, okay? Zhang Jiale said. Struggling isn't limited to just the pro scene. This here is still glory. This is our true starting point. End chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 586, Audio Source, WuShaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 586, Provoke Relay. The two gods didn't stop moving their hands when they spoke to each other. Unrivaled Super Hottie and Dazzling Spring spun around each other, fighting back and forth. Occasionally, Unrivaled Super Hottie would shout out, "Clerics," reducing the quality of the match. "Charge over and help." An unexpected order came from Tyrannical Ambition's side. Those two players were fighting fiercely. The fight for the boss was turning white-hot as well. Players continued to die in battle. The boss's aggro kept on shifting between the three guilds through the usage of Provoke. Blossom Valley wasn't focusing too much on the boss, so they had already fallen slightly behind. As for Tyrannical Ambition, Unrivaled Super Hottie had given them the advantage by being the first to establish aggro. Right now was the perfect moment to firmly grasp the lead. Who would have thought that their guild leader would order their main force to support Unrivaled Super Hottie? Even though the players didn't understand the reason, they still followed the order. The players from Blossom Valley tried their hardest to stop Tyrannical Ambition, but Tyrannical Ambition's strength didn't lose to them one bit. Tyrannical Ambition couldn't crush Blossom Valley with one strike, but they could still focus their forces onto a point and create a small opening. Under Zhang Yu's orders, the players from Tyrannical Ambition quickly rushed through the opening and provided a line of defense for the clerics. The clerics immediately began casting their spells and healed Unrivaled Super Hottie. Ha 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 ha! Unrivaled Super Hottie laughed. When the players from Blossom Valley saw this guy laugh, they gave him a look of disdain and began healing Dazzling Spring as well. The two players were being healed like crazy, and neither of them had the destructive force of OBSS. Their health bars were always full. No matter how hard they attacked, their health bar never dropped. What's the point of a fight like this? Zhang Jiali looked up at the sky. Ha ha, let's see which side's clerics will run out of mana first. Yishu said. Shameless. Zhang Jiali was speechless. With the way they were fighting, even though his health never dropped, as a Spitfire with leather armor, he definitely wouldn't be able to survive as long as a knight with heavy armor. Against a normal opponent, Zhang Jiali could widen the distance between them and kite the opponent, but he was currently against another god. Kiting him wouldn't be so easy. Even if he were able to widen the distance for a moment, he would quickly be chased down. Thus, Zhang Jiali decided not to waste his energy fighting Yishu. He tossed Unrivaled Super Hottie aside and directly rushed into the chaotic fight between the two guilds. From this point of view, it could be seen that Zhang Jiali had the upper hand over Unrivaled Super Hottie. If he wanted to run, he could easily do so. Running again? Please stop giving up so easily. Yishu shouted as he chased after Dazzling Spring. I'll come clean you up in a bit. Zhang Jiali replied calmly. Following afterwards, he blasted apart the group of enemies he had charged into. His offense wasn't something ordinary players could defend against. The bright lights swallowed up numerous players. The players from Blossom Valley had been prepared. They were all in the same team as Dazzling Spring, so none of them took any damage. Tyrannical Ambition's side was much more tragic. They were unable to resist. They wanted to fight back, but they couldn't even find their opponents. From a certain perspective, Zhang Jiali's 100 Blossoms fighting style was a type of offense and defense. He didn't rely on the skill effects to defend. Instead, he used the visual effects that were supposed to just be for decoration. These beautiful flashes of light would cover up Dazzling Spring, so the players wouldn't know his position. Where were they supposed to attack? This technique was similar to vanishing steps. It wasn't something the system had purposefully intended for, but rather something the players had found for themselves according to how the game worked. Even though the damage that could be dealt by a single person was limited, Zhang Jiali was a god who could increase the pace of his attacks with his playing. His ability to deal incredible amounts of damage in an instant was regarded as a model for many teams. This extravagant playstyle looked like it covered an extremely large area, but in reality, the damage was focused on one target. And only Zhang Jiali knew who this target was. By the time his opponent was able to figure it out, it was usually too late. And with so many enemies around him, it was naturally very difficult to see who his attacks were focused on, even more so for normal players on a lower level than him. The health of some players fell slowly, while the health of other players fell quickly. But from an overall outlook of the battle, everyone was being attacked without any distinction between them. For his fighting style, the more numerous the enemies, the easier it was to confuse the enemies. The players from Tyrannical Ambition were helpless. Suddenly, they saw Dazzling Spring shoot out from the bright lights, but he didn't stop attacking. However, this time, instead of attacking all around him, his attacks were focused on one player. Everyone thought they would be able to guess who this target was, but when they turned to look, everyone was stunned. This guy was an unrivaled super hottie, but a knight from Tyrannical Ambition. This guy didn't have any sort of conflict with Dazzling Spring, but right now, he had become Dazzling Spring's target. Haha, not bad. Unrivaled super hottie finally rushed over, but Dazzling Spring didn't even glance at him as he continued to attack that knight. He didn't even turn his head when Unrivaled super hottie slashed at him. "Give me a focus," everyone heard Dazzling Spring shout. Afterwards, his attacks instantly engulfed that knight. But this knight didn't fall. The clerics supporting him had been prepared and had started healing him a while ago. This knight was an elite from Tyrannical Ambition. His equipment was better than Unrivaled super hotties, so with clerics assisting him, he was able to survive the burst. When they saw that Dazzling Spring was still attacking this knight, they finally came to a realization. Provoked. He's been provoked. Hurry up and give him a focus. Blossom Valley finally realized as well, but they were too late. Unrivaled super hottie shouted. Next. WuxaWorldAudio.com. And another knight from far away used provoke. Dazzling Spring turned around and ran over to that side. Blossom Valley's clerics wanted to cast a focus to dispel the provoke, but after the provoke had been relayed, they were no longer in reach. In order to get closer, they would need to ask if Tyrannical Ambition would kindly move aside. Hurry over. This time, the players from Blossom Valley shouted these words. Except this time, the situation was completely different. Last time, Unrivaled super hottie and Dazzling Spring had been in a harmonious 1v1 environment. Even though both of them had been within Blossom Valley's troops, no one else was attacking Unrivaled super hottie besides Dazzling Spring. But this time, Dazzling Spring had been provoked into Tyrannical Ambition's troops, but he didn't receive the same treatment. As soon as Dazzling Spring fell into the enemy's hands, Yishu shouted without any shame. "Kill him. What are you waiting for?" The players from Tyrannical Ambition all attacked Dazzling Spring. How much health could a Spitfire have? In addition, after being provoked, his movements were limited and didn't really have any way to dodge the barrage of attacks. In the end, he could only survive a bit longer than a normal player before dying. Okay, he's dead now. Stop charging towards him and hurry up and kill the boss. Quote. With Dazzling Spring dead, Unrivaled super hottie immediately appeared between Blossom Valley and Tyrannical Ambition as if nothing had happened. FCK. Kill him. The players from Blossom Valley heard his statement and went mad. What boss? Unrivaled super hottie's existence was much more disgusting than the boss's. Everyone threw their attacks at Unrivaled super hottie, not even caring if they themselves took damage. Even a pro knight wouldn't be able to take this huge storm of attacks. Unrivaled super hottie ran away and involved the surrounding players. These players weren't able to react in time and were instantly killed. So hot-headed. Yishu grumbled as he ran. The players he passed by gave him salutes. This guy carried a halo of aggro. To be able to make the enemies attack without any regard for their lives, how capable was that? What's the situation with the boss? Unrivaled super hottie swiftly retreated from the front lines and went to ask Zhang Yu's Wandering Peak. His objectives quickly switched. After getting rid of Dazzling Spring, he stopped peeking and focused on the boss fight. Right now, Samsara has the advantage. Zhang Yu was speechless for a good while. Too arrogant. I'll go to steal it back. Knights, follow me. Yizhu shouted. The knights looked at him in fear. The several players that were previously near unrivaled Super Hottie had been killed in an instant from the enemy's attacks. With such a huge amount of aggro on his head, who dared to stand next to him? This unrivaled Super Hottie directly asked the guild leader, "Can I take out the knights and clerics and have them join my team?" Okay. Zhang Yu agreed decisively. He immediately reorganized the teams by putting all of the clerics and knights in one team. Then, he added unrivaled Super Hottie into it. Knights, listen to my orders. Stop using provoke. Unrivaled Super Hottie instructed. What? Wait for everyone's provoke to come off cooldown and then wait for my order. We'll directly take the boss away in one swoop. Unrivaled Super Hottie explained. How is that going to work? Quote, no one believed him. The knights from the other guilds weren't dead. If we act, the enemies will do the same. It'll just be a stalemate again. That's why I said wait for my order, Unrivaled Super Hottie said arrogantly. End chapter. The King's Avatar, Chapter 587, Audio Source, WuXiaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 587, Honest Maelstrom Counterattack. In Unrivaled Super Hottie's team, besides knights, there were only clerics. These knights were the same class as Unrivaled Super Hottie. They were used to being treated as respected uncles. Now, another knight had suddenly taken command. None of them felt good about it. As for the clerics, they were close partners with the tanks. In a situation where they were wearing the same pair of pants, they weren't happy with Unrivaled Super Hottie suddenly ordering them about either. But there was nothing they could do. The experienced Zhang Yu had anticipated their emotions and said a few words to them. These elites weren't playing the game full-time, but they were still playing the game part-time. Whenever they did something, they couldn't just do as they pleased. Now that their guild leader had given them an order, even if they weren't willing, they still had to listen. Knights, retreat. Unrivaled Super Hottie instructed and the knights at the front line withdrew. Clerics, heal me. Quote, after the knights fell back, Unrivaled Super Hottie gave another order and rushed forward directly into the enemy ranks. After activating Knight's Spirit, he immediately used Sacrificial Roar. The surrounding enemy guild players suffered under the effects of the roar and their next attack flew towards Unrivaled Super Hottie. A white aura emanated from Unrivaled Super Hottie's shield. Following afterwards, he swung his shield and began blocking the incoming attacks. Maelstrom Counterattack. All of the knights cried out in shock. Since he activated Knight's Spirit, it's an honest Maelstrom Counterattack. Maelstrom Counterattack was another knight defensive skill. During its 10-second duration, enemy attacks had a certain probability of being reflected back. Under Knight's Spirit, Maelstrom Counterattack had a 100% chance of reflecting the enemy's attacks back. As a result, it was called Honest Maelstrom Counterattack. This type of skill wasn't easy to use in PvP. As long as the opponent didn't attack, Maelstrom Counterattack was useless. At the present, knights mostly use this skill to interrupt the flow of battle. As soon as Maelstrom Counterattack came out, the opponent would immediately stop attacking, allowing knights to use this opportunity to reorganize themselves. Unrivaled Super Hottie's usage of this skill obviously wasn't to give his team a chance to rest. He had used Sacrificial Roar just before, forcing the enemies to attack him. The clerics immediately tensed up. They didn't think this guy would suddenly give them so much pressure. Maelstrom Counterattack was in Maelstrom Reflect. First, the shield absorbed the enemy attacks and then used the sword to strike back. The knight wasn't immune to damage during the duration. Whatever damage the attack should deal would still be dealt. Then, the damage would be returned to the opponent. If not, how else would a knight be able to show honesty? The elite clerics didn't dare to try and predict anything. They raised their crosses and cast their spells. They used everything they had, from big heals to small heals, long cast times to instant casts. What would the result be like? They didn't have any confidence. If the enemy attacks directly 100-0 the unrivaled super hottie's health, it wouldn't matter how many clerics they had. And the result? No one knew, because this sacrificial roar affected too many targets. In an instant, everyone's attacks flew out. It was like Zhang Jolly's 100 Blossoms fighting style. The attacks engulfed unrivaled super hottie. But Zhang Jolly's light show was a form of protection, while unrivaled super hottie would be taking crazy amounts of damage. This was something he had brought onto himself. He's still not dead. The others didn't know the results, but the clerics knew that their spells had locked onto unrivaled super hottie. Since their spells hadn't faded away yet, it meant he was still alive. These healing spells couldn't be used on dead bodies. Only a revive would work. What was he trying to do? Everyone asked themselves this question. At this moment, everyone could faintly see a silhouette flicker amidst the light. The flick was extremely quick and brief. It was the movement of someone jumping and falling rapidly. Then everyone saw a shockwave disperse the light. The players surrounding unrivaled super hottie were pushed away and knocked to the ground. Not a single one of them stood up. What? No one was able to respond for a moment. The light and shockwave had already passed. Unrivaled super hottie was still standing there with a whole bunch of white healing aura around him. All around him were players that had been knocked to the ground. The view was crystal clear. Everyone saw the scene and couldn't help but cry out, "Are you kidding me? Instant kill? How is that possible? How did it happen? They're not actually dead, right?" All of the players that had been swept away by the shockwave were all dead. Their corpses and their equipment were scattered all across the ground. There were at least 20 players that had been struck by the shockwave. Some were from Samsara and some were from Blossom Valley. Even the level 70 Wild Boss Blade Master Lan Rui wouldn't be able to inflict such damage with one attack. But now, unrivaled super hottie had somehow instantly killed off at least 20 players with one strike. No one on the battlefield was a noob. All of them were peak experts of the heavenly domain. This sort of occurrence had never happened before. Were knights this fearsome? Then what's the point of other classes? Everyone might as well just be one. Amidst the widespread terror that had taken over the battlefield, unrivaled super hottie stepped forward again. The players from Samsara and Blossom Valley had already forgotten their purpose in coming here. Just this one step made them retreat in a hurry. It was as if this step was a prelude to another huge massacre. Let alone the two guilds that had been hit by the attack, even tyrannical ambition side was in fear, especially the knights. They were so shocked, their eyes were about to pop out. What happened? All of the knights in tyrannical ambition just happened to be gathered together, so they quickly began discussing with each other. Were those guys already almost dead? How could there be such a coincidence? If they weren't already almost dead, then other than an assassin's life-risking strike, how could they have instantly died? It was too hard to see because of all of that light. Was that shockwave from Heroic Leap? WuxaWorldAudio.com. Heroic Leap. I didn't see him jump. I thought I saw someone flicker. Just a flicker. If his hands are quick enough, maybe he did a small jump. Wait, could it be like this? Someone suddenly thought of something and shouted. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Tyrannical Ambition's #1 knight speaking. In other words, he was Tyrannical Ambition's head tank. When Three Stones spoke, everyone calmed down and listened to him. He used Sacrificial Roar to concentrate the enemy attacks onto him. Then, by using Honest Maelstrom counterattack, he absorbed everyone's attacks. Finally, he used just Heroic Leap to return all of the absorbed damage to each person. With all of the damage he absorbed, of course it would be enough to instantly kill someone. Unrivaled Super Hottie was only able to survive all of that damage because of all of the clerics crazily healing him. Three Stones said, It can be used like that? The knights sucked in a cold breath. They were all experienced knights. Apart from pro players, no one would dare to call themselves more experienced than them. But now, this knight just did something they had never thought of before. I don't know. I've never tried before, but I just read over the description for these skills and nothing said they couldn't be used like this. But the problem is that actually doing it is extremely difficult even if you know the theory. You need to be extremely quick and precise with how you used your skills. We probably don't have the ability to do it. The knights listened and fell silent. They had played Glory for a long time. They recognized their own skill. Even if they knew the theory, if they tried, they definitely wouldn't be able to succeed. They wouldn't be able to do it even if they were lucky. The conditions were too strict. Who is this person? The fourth branch knight, Flight asked gloomily. He originally thought he could use unrivaled super hottie as a stepping stone to show his strength to the overall guild leader. But now, from the looks of it, this guy's skill level far surpassed him. With just this one move, anyone could tell that compared to him, Flight was just a nobody. Flight asked something that was on the minds of many of them, but Three Stones didn't answer. At this moment, Unrivaled Super Hottie shouted, "Are your provokes ready?" Ready. The attack had been too shocking. None of the knights were unwilling anymore. They heard his question and promptly answered back. "Line up and wait for my command. When you see it, immediately act." Unrivaled Super Hottie shouted. The knights lined up and Unrivaled Super Hottie quickly typed out a 1 inch. The first knight acted and used a provoke on the boss. Samsara's knights were still resisting. One of their knights was about to use a provoke when Unrivaled Super Hottie typed out a 1 inch. Samsara's knight acted, but right when his provoke completed, Tyrannical Ambition's side sent out a provoke. The boss didn't even turn his head towards them and headed straight for Tyrannical Ambition. End chapter.